I just finished the book, King, Warrior, Magician, Love. So, welcome back to the Small Chops podcast. I am here helping to renegotiate the social contract. And with that, trying to educate ourselves as much as humanly possible on what this thing called a relationship is and how we can do it better. So, this book is by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette. I believe they're two researchers. One of my favorite things about reading books, especially from people that reference others, is that some of the most impactful quotes that the authors find are from people that you find outside of the authors. It's not like you all are kind of in the same group, or if you read this person, you're going to read that person. I wasn't expecting to read about Carl Jung, and that was such a pleasant surprise, seeing that they heavily rely on a lot of the information. And I guess I should have known because this is called the Rediscovering the Archetypes of the Mature Masculine. But somebody else that I loved that isn't a part of this at all is Joseph Campbell. And I remember years ago when I moved down to Key West, we were stuck in the house because it was a tropical storm. I didn't know many people. And the friend that I made, I think I met them at work. And they were like, hey, we got an extra room. You can stay with me and my boyfriend upstairs, blah, blah, blah. And I ran into The Hero with a Thousand Faces, the interview with Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyer. Incredible interview talking about ancient cultures and modern cultures, talking about the initiation. This is where I first learned that you make men. You don't make women. Women grow into women, but you make men. And I hear terms like steel sharpens steel. And these are very specific to the process of taking boys and making men, giving boys a transition process where the boy dies and it is a man that is kind of reborn out of the ashes of the boy with the help of elders, with the help of those in the community that are charged with this task. I think the development of the masculine essence is vital to a world, but it's vital to a world that isn't looking to be controlled, I guess. There's a lot of autonomy when the mature masculine is in his fullness. There's definitely a bit more responsibility and kind of making sure that the life you're living is not only righteous, but is reliant on others in a very harmonious way. And you think of things like homesteads, I think they're called, where everyone has a piece of land and this person is going to grow kale as well as chicken feed. And this person is going to grow whatever it is that fish eat or something like that. No one's going to have to compete. Everybody's going to just fill in a gap in the community. When me and some friends sailed down to Central America, we stopped in Guatemala and I decided to kind of hop out and see what the country is about. I didn't want to stay coastal. I wanted to see what the mountains were like. I think I really like high elevation climate. It was much cooler and just to see the rest of the country. So my dog and I hopped on a bus from Rio Dulce to Antigua. From there, I volunteered at a hostel. I think I was there for a week or 2 weeks max. I met this young gentleman, and when you travel in a very backpacker style, you notice that there are not a lot of people that look like me. And so when I can identify with people and relate, because I think that relation is super important as well. Like, what culture did you grow up in? Even if we look alike, are we still going to be able to connect, or are we going to connect simply because we know what it feels like to be the one that sticks out of groups and things like that? But that cultural cohesion is super important. And one of my favorite things about this person is they were from New York, but they were from just a very different New York, right? I grew up in like a Cameron DMX locks kind of New York. And he grew up in like you ever seen the movie Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist? I feel like I really missed the chance to enjoy New York with that experience, with those eyes, with that feeling of being able to sneak out of the house and go to places, underground music, just that whole scene I missed out on. But he looked like he kind of was a part of that scene. And maybe he stayed at the hostel for like 3 days or something like that. We didn't get a chance to hang out much, but the few conversations we had, and this was before I had any idea about the things that I wanted to talk about in this particular podcast. I'm talking, this has to have been My dog was about 9 when he died. I probably had him in his first 2 years, and he's been dead for almost 5 years. So I'm saying, like, I was a very different person at that age. That was my mid to late 20s. Huh, wow. I just hopped on a boat with some friends after school. What was I doing with my life anyway? But he gave me this book, and hopefully this book didn't just get passed around and I kind of broke that chain, like the people at Starbucks that pay for the car ahead of them, and then the person that doesn't want to pay for the next car. It's just like, nah. I'm gonna keep this jug, or I'm gonna keep this benefit for myself. I hope I didn't do that with this book, because I've had this book for a very long time. It's traveled with me, it's lived with me, and I just never read it. But that book was in Mexico with me. That book was in Oregon with me. That book has traveled so many places with me, and I never cracked it open. So I finally did that this year, especially after a relationship kind of went sour. And I really wanted to make sure, what am I, what is my masculinity doing to either piss people off, intimidate people, scare people, or remind them of something that they don't want to deal with? So definitely dove deep into this book, but it took me, again, a long time to get through it, or to get to it. So I'm finally going to start. The first 3 chapters I went through quickly, and then there's really big diagram about all the different archetypes that it talks about. But the first quote that confirmed that this is a book that I really want to read goes like this: It can be said that life's perhaps most fundamental dynamic is the attempt to move from a lower form of experience and consciousness to a higher or deeper level of consciousness. I think about ideas like, I just want to be selfishly better. I want to be a better person for not just me, but for everybody who comes in contact. I want to be a better person for my personal experience in this human body, in this lifetime. I want to be better at doing this thing, whatever it is. And moving from one form of experience, one level of experience, to a higher level is something that I strive to do. And now my focus is doing that on relationships. But for right now, the thing that is most interesting to me is figuring out how to move from whatever level of consciousness I am in the romantic partner stage of my life to a higher, more developed, more conscious person, right? I want to be a joy to be with, but I want to make sure that that joy is shared in a mutual way that I think is fulfilling for me and my partner. Because at the end of the day, having fun only does so much for your personal development, right? And I think, or something that I live by, and I think I heard this by Jordan Peterson, is we're not here to be happy. We're here to learn. Learning can be fun. The results of your learning can make you happy, but the real effort, the real reason for this existence is to be better versions of ourselves. Having fun is cool, but that lasts for so long. And whoever wants to have fun all the time probably wants to go to heaven. If they wanted to go to heaven, they probably wouldn't have been born in the first place, because in my opinion, that's where we came from. Perfection is boring. We came down here to fill the imperfections. We came here to enjoy the highs and the lows. We came into this existence, into this experience, to do more than just have fun, to do more than just be. Right? You can be, but you can be better. So that first quote really um, touched me in a way that made me think, okay, I'm really going to focus on this book. I'm going to take into account exactly what it's saying, because this book it has me as a personality in mind. One of the first quotes that I took that talked about the psychology was this one. It says, boy psychology is charged with the struggle for dominance of others in some form or another. As I say that quote now, I think about how when we're born, technically or anatomically, we're both female until the, uh, like the penis grows a little later or something like that. So then it becomes a boy. And I think when we're young, both boys and girls have indistinguishable characteristics. I think either boys and girls have both boy psychology, both girl psychology, but whatever that childish psychology is, I would say this is childish psychology. Childish psychology is charged with the struggle for dominance of others in some form or another, because a kid isn't having fun unless it almost feels like sometimes they get to an age where somebody else has to have fun with them. The things that they possess, right? There's nothing like a kid seeing you play with their toy that they discarded 5 minutes ago, and then all of a sudden they want it again. But yes, that immature psychology is concerned with dominance. And I think as the masculine, we enter relationships learning that domination is attractive. We start dating people, especially if you're a bigger person, especially if American culture has deemed you dangerous. You have a certain role to play in other people's fantasies. So that responsibility is something you carry with you. And that caricature that you play can come from experience, or it can come from just what you think the world wants to see from you. And then you may start acting out. People are trying to gain power and authority by either taking somebody out or making deals with the wrong people or dealing chemicals, whatever it is, like dealing drugs. All these different things are examples of that psychology of the desire to dominate. And it very well could be born from a lack of control in one's environment, a lack of representation in one's family or environment, because there's nothing worse than nobody having your back and you're supposed to just submit to everyone that's around you. And I think as children, those resentments can really start at a young age, where whatever the teacher says goes, whatever any adult says is what happened. Or you can never speak to an adult as an equal or as a peer. You can't express yourself, but there's no other adults that can take what you feel and bring that up to your parent. Like the uncles, the older cousins, and things like that. There's some people who didn't grow up with those influences in their lives and those opportunities for representation. So this boy psychology, this need for dominance isn't born out of nowhere. There are some real reasons, and it can't be because of psychology. It can't be because of finances. It can't be because of patriarchy. It can't be because of democracy. These are all things that just happen in the day to day, people being people scenarios. And I'm sure this has happened all over the world. One of the most important things that this book says that our current Western culture, Western civilization that is dominating most of the world now, the book speaks of pseudo initiation, like military service. And it says, quote, "The fantasy is that the humiliation and forced non-identity of boot camp will make a man out of it." We see this in so many places. We see this in corporate America. We see this on athletic teams. We see this in colleges, whether you're in a fraternity or sorority. We see that time and time again, Western culture lets you know that if you are the new person, or if you are the person that wants access to a position, that wants access to prestige, that wants access to, you know, whatever it is that's super secluded or reclusive, selective, or non accessible to everyone, humiliation is often the tactic. And I was almost prepared to do that such a long time, because I remember being in college and thinking like, this isn't something that interests me at all. Like having a conversation and really being able to work out what does masculinity look like to you at this age. And I understand these processes, whether it's boot camp, whether it's the process that you go through if you want to be part of a sorority or a fraternity. All of these are part of a ritual initiation. And all of these are part of breaking down the individual so that you can be part of the community. And for a certain personality type, I think those things are very useful. I think their methodology, the way it stands now in a lot of these places and cultures, is valid, but that shoe doesn't fit everyone. And many times, those are people that probably will excel. So there's almost a pipeline, right? The person that went to debutante balls or the person that went to Boy Scouts is probably the person that was in student government. And that person ends up continuing to be part of that student government and university, part of the fraternity or sorority. And then there's club after club and there's access after access. And there is a trajectory for that, but that is for a very specific personality type. And I think that personality is not universal. And there are many of us who could have used that structure, who could have used that community of masculine energy, but felt like that price was just a bit too much. There's a sacrifice that one is willing to make, of course, whether it's financial. There is a sacrifice of oneself that one is willing to make. I imagine when you have children, or if you want to be part of a community or organization. I think about just working a regular job, whether it's corporate or not. If you're an employee of someone, you do want to bring yourself to the workplace, but you are making a deal that you are going to alter what you may do in your own personal life for the benefit of the company or the person that you work for. And I'm going to do exactly what I want. Under your employment, it could work, but oftentimes I think it's more wise to be really cognizant of the person that, or the business or the organization that you want to be a part of. That made me think of Pop the Balloon and Find Love and all its iterations and how many people go there trying to be their authentic self, which is important eventually. Like if you were, I get it. I get it. I do get it. Because if I don't wear suits, but I see the people that wear suits get the baddest girls, and I start wearing suits so I can get on the show and get one of the bad girls, but we're going to fall apart real quickly. I get the desire to want to be more authentic. Bro, buy some new shoes, man. Or bring a pair of shoes. Just don't come dressed however. Dress is important. No one is looking for diamonds in cardboard boxes labeled trash. Impressions are really important. Showing things that attract the opposite sex and doing them intentionally is really impactful for relationships, I think. Even if you don't always keep clean shoes, that first impression is going to be, oh, okay, he's this kind of person. And then you can say, hey, you know what? These shoes, I bought them for this occasion. They're probably my same daily drivers for the next 6 months. That's not what's important to me, but I did want to put my best foot forward and respect the occasion and come to you like X, Y, and Z. But there is a validity in y'all want to come exactly who I am. Oh, I guess this is a good time to, whenever you get into dates, whenever you go out with people, a lot of people ask, hey, what did you learn in your last relationship? And I look forward to having that conversation because one thing I learned is not to avoid pain, not to avoid the things that you don't like. If you know you don't like certain kind of food, but that food is going to be what is being served at whatever event you and your person are going to, eat the food. Just eat the food. Whatever happens, happens, right? As long as it's not going to kill you, eat the food. Do the thing. Do the thing that's uncomfortable. Do the thing that you know you've done before and that has caused issues. Do it anyway. Because if it's important to that person, you can have that conversation. You can have that conversation from a place of, I did this, right? Yes, I did this for you. I don't think that that is vilifying anything. I think if I'm saying, I did this with you in mind because this isn't something I wanted to do. I don't know if you should say it before. I don't know if you should say it after. I don't know if you should say it at all. but I think the action speaks a lot. And that is part of that sacrifice, right? There are other sacrifices that you're making for the sake of your relationship. But being able to say, hey, you know what? I am doing this because I know that this is important to my person. And afterwards, if you did it and you didn't like it, you can explain to your person why you didn't like it, why this makes you feel the way that you felt. And you thought you would feel differently. And maybe you didn't want to do this from Jump Street. And you can have that conversation. You can grow from it because at least you've tried in this relationship. I think people don't want a lot of what went on in your last relationship to affect this relationship, right? So if you went to sushi restaurants in your last relationship and whatever sushi you ordered, was just bad, you and your partner, and you're off sushi, don't automatically close the possibility of sushi in your current relationship because this person may know things about sushi, about restaurants, or just have a different taste for sushi that the last person didn't. So let's say the last person loved tempura. And you know what? You're not a tempura person, but you love sashimi. This person loves sashimi and you love sashimi, but you don't even know that yet because you've never tried sashimi because the only sushi you've had was tempura. So you lose out on the opportunity to fall in love with it because, you're a sashimi person in the make that hasn't been able to bud because you never gave yourself that chance. Whatever affected you negatively in your past relationships should still have the opportunity to affect you negatively in your current relationships. And that may be one of those universal norms that go across all boards because if I never tried peanut butter again, I wouldn't have found out how much I love it. And I would have been stuck eating jelly sandwiches my whole life. These are all part of the process of growing, of course, in your relationship, but showing your relationship that there are uncomfortable things that you're willing to do. And once you do those uncomfortable things, you have a marker to say, at this point in my life, I don't like this. Just like I didn't like it before, but I can honestly say that was a long time ago. Maybe I was a different person. We can try it again. Oh, it still didn't work out. At least I know now. And both you and your partner know because you have that shared experience, right? So go through it. Go through the pain. Do not avoid the pain. And I think it's actually referenced in this book, but I'm just thinking about the energy that I bring to a relationship and how it can be misconstrued. I want to be cognizant of how all parts of how I express myself in relationships can be seen and making sure that this isn't abusive. This isn't like the shadow sides, but we'll talk about that soon as well. The collective unconscious. Chapter 2 starts out with that. The collective unconscious is a Carl Jung concept that I was thinking of earlier, and how all actions, all thoughts, all memories, all experiences of every person that has ever lived lives in like a cloud somewhere. And we all have access to that cloud. Some of us know it a little bit more than others, but that cloud affects us in both conscious and unconscious ways. Probably mainly unconscious, except for those select few who actually may have direct access to that collective unconscious. But it's something that, all animals have on this planet. It's why you see huge flocks of birds flying in almost like tornado formation, things like that. And you never see birds collide. It's how fish do it as well. There's that unconscious that they're tapped into, or there's that collective, I guess for them, maybe consciousness that they are tapped into. But we as conscious and unconscious beings may not have access to that, or may have forgotten our access, may have lost our access, cut our access to that collective unconscious. But Carl Jung believes it absolutely exists, and I'm inclined to agree. I had a great example in a book about a duck. And when a duck hatches, with the first thing it sees, the first thing it can recognize as a form, it has the unconscious imprint to believe that to be its mother or caretaker, no matter if whatever it sees is up for the task or not. It could see a shoe, it could see a turtle, it could see bobcat, whatever it sees, that is mother, and that is what I attach to, and that is what I treat as caretaker. What an interesting phenomenon. I never thought about this, but the book makes that same correlation for us as people. The same thing for humans. We are wired for mother and father, whether those roles are fulfilled in our lives. And I think that's an unconscious thing as well. We need that duality. In the last book that I read, Intimate Communion, they speak about how different but important both the fatherly love and the motherly love. The motherly love being the love that is just like all encompassing. Your mom can't love you any more than she already loves you, but she can't love you less either. Her love isn't manipulatable. You can't do anything to make her love you more or less. But that fatherly love, that love that you earn, and of course, your father, I don't know, but that fatherly love is manipulatable, right? Doing what the father energy asks gains you favor with the father. And I'm thinking about the prodigal son story and how the father like didn't care that the son if it did, but welcomed them back. But that fatherly love, yeah, you can manipulate it with your actions and things. So we're just like ducks. The book says, quote, "We, like the duckling that mistakes a cat for its mother, mistake actual parents for the ideal. We, like the duckling that mistakes a cat for its actual mother, mistake our actual parents for the ideal patterns and potentials within us. Often forget that people have had examples of what love could look like in their life. And many people imprint on their one parent or the other. So they'll either look for the same love or look for the same demonstrations of love their father has to their mother, or they'll look for the same personality of their mother when they seek, loving partners. I didn't understand how important this would be until recently, where I see that there are households where the masculine energy isn't held by the man in a man woman relationship. I never thought about how that could impact their children and how their children may have a version of leading a household that is primarily driven by the mother of the house, right? So, classic examples of discipline or structure that the masculine represents is carried out by the mother. And the more demonstrations of care or the, what do they call it? The nurturing aspect of the feminine is carried out by the man in that household. And so, if a young woman is growing up with the idea of a nurturing father, they will seek that in their part. And if a man displays nurturing capabilities, that would be attractive to that woman.